Hey everyone, John here. Welcome back to another Sapphire tutorial. This is a walkthrough tutorial, and I'm going to show you how I set up this look for our recent Crumplepop launch using After Effects with Sapphire. The whole look for this is really driven by the music. Motion graphics always looks good when it's linked to music. And I've put the music file inside a pre-comp because I've used the music throughout this project, and by pre-composing it, it just means if I switch the music out, then it's going to update in all those pre-comps and save time. Above that, we have this background waveform camera comp. And in here, we have a camera linked to a null object, and we have this background waveform comp. We'll talk about these two layers in a moment. In here, we have the main effects that create the background, and those are Audio Spectrum, Mirror, Sapphire Kaleidopolar, and Sapphire Ultraglow. Let's turn those ones off. And there's our Audio Spectrum. You see the music's in this comp, and I've chosen Audio Layer, Music. And just made a few adjustments to give some nice thick bars, and I've made those green. Now, if you look over this side, when I turn on the mirror, that just mirrors that onto the other side. You can see this little yellow triangle here. That just is telling me that this is an 8-bit effect, but I've got a 32-bit project. Now, to really bring this to life, I've used Sapphire Kaleidopolar. Bang, that really changes that look, doesn't it? And because this is linked to music, of course, it really brings this alive. Now, I've made this a little brighter by using Sapphire Ultraglow. What doesn't look better with a bit of Ultraglow? Especially when we get these thicker areas, Ultraglow really pops in there and makes that look really lovely. If I wanted to, I could come back to Kaleidopolar and just increase the angle repeats, just to make a few more of those thicker areas, like that. So that's looking really good. You can see how by linking that to the audio really brings that to life. Now, inside this composition, as I mentioned, I have these two layers here. And if I just come back to the very beginning, you can see how that background waveform layer, it's 3D, is reacting to the camera. Now, if I select both of those and press EE, you can see that all of the parameters have expressions. They're all linked to the camera inside the main comp. This one here, or these two layers here. If I press U here, you can see there's the keyframes. Now, why did I duplicate the camera and put it inside the pre-comp? Well, I'll tell you. If we have a look at this background layer again, see how it's been warped? This is using Sapphire S Distort. Now, in order to get Sapphire S Distort to recognize this camera movement, or the position of the layer due to the camera, I had to pre-compose the camera. Let's just take a snapshot and I'll show you what I mean. So, snapshot in here, come back into here and turn these off. So now we're looking at it without that camera move. Coming into the main comp, see how it changes it? So Sapphire Distort is distorting this background layer, background comp, but it has to have the camera inside that comp in order to distort that in the correct position. So hopefully that makes sense. This is where pre-composing is really important. And something else that's really important to note as far as workflow is that I've duplicated this camera and null from the main comp, and if I don't link these, then any changes I make in the main comp aren't going to be reflected in this comp, and things won't be in sync. Now, the way to get these to be connected easily is to select the camera and the null in the main comp and copy, but copy using copy with property links. So then when I paste it into this comp, if I press EE, you can see everything is linked via expressions. So then any changes that I make to either of these layers in the main comp will be reflected in this comp. So it's a really important workflow to save time, and also to make sure you don't break your look. All right. Now, while we're looking at that distortion, let's talk about how that's being created. For S-Distort, you can see for the lens, I've chosen this FG waveforms comp. And this is this one here. If we turn this on, you can have a look and see how that sits over that distortion. I love distorting background layers with S-Distort this way because it really integrates foreground with the background. Let's open up foreground waveforms and take a look at this one. And just come into here. Okay, so this is very similar to the previous waveform, except you can see it's got two different colors. When I was looking at the original Crumplepop graphics, I noticed that it kind of had this look where it had two different colors, and I didn't think there was going to be a way to create that using just one audio spectrum layer, so I had to use two. And let's take a look at how this was built. So if I just press EE, notice how Audio Spectrum 2 has all of these expressions applied. That's because it's linked to Audio Spectrum 1. So I'm going to just delete that and show you why I did that. So there's Audio Spectrum 1, that's the main one. And if I just duplicate that and select the top one again, this is going to be the parent, choose Edit, Copy with Property Links, and paste. Just as with our cameras, we've now linked our effects. So it means that any changes I make to this effect will change this effect as well, which saves time. I do want to individualize this a little bit. So, for example, I want to change the color, so I'll just make that green. And okay, well, it's linked by an expression, so I have to turn that off by hitting or clicking Alt or Option on the stopwatch, just to turn that expression off, just borrow that color. And I want to be able to see it on top of that audio spectrum, so I have to composite on original. Also have to turn off the expression. There we go. Still can't see it because I have to adjust maximum height. Now I could turn maximum height off, but I still want to control maximum height with the first audio spectrum effect. So what I'll do is I'll just type in max, and I'll just change the expression a bit just by subtracting 350. Okay, so now they're still linked. So if I change the top one, the bottom one changes. You can see they're just offset, which is really nice. So any changes I make now to the top one would reflect in the bottom one. Things like thickness and different frequency. So it really saves time once this is set up. Now, inside foreground waveforms, we've also got our camera null and our camera. Hitting EE, you can see they're also linked via expressions. Once again, because if we change the camera and the null in the main comp, these will update. And I've also just positioned these waveforms, duplicated and positioned them in 3D space. Notice how there's also a little bit of blur on that. That's because I have depth of field enabled, which is really nice, especially when it lands about here. You can see how it's blurred in the foreground, a little bit blurred in the background, a little bit sharper around this area here, mainly around where the text sits. Very nice. Okay, so let's just turn that off for a sec. Come back down to this layer here. This is called Underground Disco. And no, there isn't an effect in Sapphire called Underground Disco. This is just the name of a preset that I created. And it's actually Sapphire Cloud's perspective. Let's just solo this. It's very subtle. I wanted to add something a little bit extra, something that gave it a bit of depth and a kind of a lighting effect that was kind of perspective-y or had some perspective. And I wasn't sure what I wanted, so I used S-Effect, which allows me to browse all of the Sapphire presets, and I did a search. Let me just click Load Preset. And if you've watched my previous tip on using S-Effect to browse presets, you'll understand why I'm doing this. If you haven't, let me just explain why. I wasn't sure what I wanted. I knew I wanted to use Sapphire, but I wasn't sure what I needed. So I just came into the preset browser via S-Effect, and I did a search. One way is to just click on background and do a search that way. Another way is to just type something in. And I knew I'd already created this preset, so I just typed in underground, and there's my preset using S-Cloud's perspective. And you can see it has that nice perspective look, and it matches the shot quite nicely. What I did was change the color, made that green, and I did apply S-Rack Defocus as well. And I could have put Rack Defocus inside of S-Effect and just had it all inside S-Effect. But I am so used to After Effects and just stacking up effects, it didn't make a lot of difference. And if we just add that to the background waveform, just adds that nice little lighting effect in there. Now, above that, I have an After Effects solid. It's a black solid, just with a mask on there, soft feathered mask. Because if I just turn on the text, you can see that distortion is really adding a lot of detail behind this, and it kind of clashes with it. So just adding a veil in this way just darkens that down. It actually adds a bit of depth too, like there's 3D space behind this. Above that, we have Sapphire S Gradient Radial, just to add a nice big blob of color or light in the middle. Here we go, like that. I often use S Gradient Radial in this way to add light to my comps. Above that, we have S Vignette, a simple vignette effect. I didn't need to look at the presets for this one. Just add some darkness around the outside and also a little bit of blur just by increasing the blur amount. It's like that. Obviously, vignettes are great for focusing the attention around the middle of the frame. Here's our foreground waveforms. Very nice. Loving how they're distorting the background. Makes this look really integrated. And we have our Crumplepop logo. Crumplepop logo uses a different waveform. There's the lines, one similar to the one we looked at before. I duplicated that and I chose the dots option, analog dots. You can see for this one I have side A, which gives me the top, and I duplicated it and I chose side B and just grabbed that comp and just sort of just slid it down like that. And that gave me this nice little outline like that. It's a nice little bit of foreground detail there. We have the Boris Effects logo above that and the Crumplepop logo and some text. And I just want to show you how I made this sort of sliding effect. Just solo Crumplepop. You can see how that slides out like that. I'll just turn the logo on again. So I've got it sort of sliding out from underneath the logo. I often do this kind of text reveal. Now, in order to do this, I'll just duplicate this and hit U. I'll just remove those keyframes. So I've got the mask. I'll just bring the mask just a little closer to the top here. We'll have it sliding from top. And in order to do this, you need to set a keyframe for mask path and position, like that. Just slide those in time. And now, rather than actually changing the position or the mask path, I use the pan behind tool or anchor point tool, and that's Y. So now I can just drag and move that up. You can see how it adds keyframes for both mask path and position. And that way I have that sliding. If I want to reverse that, I just grab those keyframes and just put them there, like that. Nice little effect, and I use it all the time. Okay, so that's the look of the text. One thing I did do was just masked out the waveforms. Just at the beginning here, you can see, otherwise without that mask, otherwise we have it, the waveform, you can see it visible through the logo, which doesn't look very good. And I've just animated that to fit in with the animation. Because we want to see it at the end here. We want to be able to see it then, so I've just animated that mask right down so it disappears. Okay. Right, we're almost done. A couple of other effects on top. First one is a chromatic aberration effect. And for this one, once again, I've used S-Effect and I just did a search for chromatic aberration inside the preset browser. And I found a preset that I often like to use. it's Sapphire Warp Chroma with Sapphire Vignette piped into the matte port. And you can see how it just restricts the Warp Chroma to the edges of the frame. So that's an S-Effect preset that you can search for in the preset browser by looking for chromatic aberration. Above that, we have a bit of ultra glow, just a touch of blue, just to add a bit of nice blue glow around the logo. Let's turn that on. Just subtle, don't want to blow it out. And above that, we have the camera we've already looked at and the camera null. And once again, if I change anything in here, it's going to update everything inside all the other comps that use those layers. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, please leave a comment or join us on our Discord channel where we can talk in more detail. And you can even tap me on the shoulder if you find me there, and I can share my screen and I can talk to you in person. For now, this is John from Boris Effects. I'll see you in the next tutorial.